And you know what else they say about my people? The polls. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
Computers may be twice as fast as they were in 1973, but your average voter is as drunk and stupid as ever. The only one who's changed is me. I've become bitter, and let's face it, crazy over the years. And once I'm swept into office, I'll sell our children's organs to zoos for meat, and I'll go into people's houses at night and wreck up the place.
Pennsylvania goes to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the President of the United States.
Nixon's back!
Hello and welcome to the Serfs. I'm Lance.
And I'm Dave.
And today's episode is brought to you by the letter A for Arooo. Because we're talking about Tricky Dick, the dickiest of dicks, the biggest of all dicks.
The Jowl King.
Ah, yes, the Jowel King. I think he ruined the term dick because it used to mean something beautiful. It was like a big black penis, but now it means something pejorative. It's a
small white
term.
penis.
Thank you, Richard Nixon. You've ruined dick forever. You've ruined dick for everyone. So yeah, it's so hard to sound or try to be professional after an opening like that. All right, well, now for some bookkeeping to keep things organized and professional, as people have come to accept from us. So again, if you guys want to comment, send us comment, suggestions, anything, do so in the comment section at theserfs.podbean.com. But let's get right down to it. Dave, what are you drinking this fine evening?
Oh, well, I am drinking lemon gin saison from the Bridge Brewing Company. It's a local brewery up in North Vancouver here.
Nice. Oh, that's really good.
This is nice and lemony.
Oh, nice and lemony. And gingery, I hope, as well.
No, it's not very gingery at all.
False advertising.
What about yourself?
Well, I'm not nearly as classy. I'm drinking Modelo, which, there's a small reason behind that. Apparently, the hipsters here have told me that PBR is no longer fly or trill or fleek, as the kids are calling it.
I don't think anybody has ever said PBR is on fleek. I think
PBR is on fleek. Bruh. Our millennial dreams are all satisfied by our on fleek PBR.
Go on about this thing. I've never heard of this beer.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought, Modelo is so popular here that I assumed it was in Canada. We just had it as an import or something. It's a Mexican cerveza that's slightly cheaper than Corona, but actually more delicious.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if there is here in the stores, but I certainly, if I have seen it hasn't made a mark on me. I mean, I'm not a hipster enough.
It wasn't on fleek, as some might say.
Yes. This episode will be on fleek, though.
This episode will certainly be on fleek. Hashtag trail dreams.
We got to pander to that millennial group, those people under 26, 27. They
can't afford XFM, so they're like surviving off podcasts because they're free, obviously.
Fucking deadbeats.
Get a job, hippies.
I don't know if you read it. There was an article today written by some Australian billionaire who is basically telling millennials that the reason they can't afford houses in this current economic climate is because they spend too much money on avocados.
Of course. Love to put a down payment on a home, but the craving for the guac, I just need it right now.
So rightfully that became a nice news article of scorn today, and everybody was ripping on it. And avocados were in vogue online today.
Oh, that's why avocados are trending. I was watching.
Yeah,
I was wondering that. I was like, what the hell? Avocados.
You gotta love it when you write an article like that is so asinine that it just gets picked up, and then because of that, you get like 1 billion hits. And he's done his job.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like that's like the equivalent of a proper troll job by I don't know, I don't know if he's an actual writer or not. All I know he's a millionaire.
Well, that's enough for me. Well, speaking of troll jobs, I guess we should break right into the headlines of the news of the week. Trump is in the news.
Scandal? I never would have expected Trump to be involved in any potential scandal. I thought he was over that. I mean, he's got such a well-manicured living hair on his head. You'd think that he'd be above this.
He has so many scandals now. We got to start giving him a name like Khaleesi in Game of Thrones, where it's like, Donald Trump, grabber of the pussy, denier of the black birth. the
wiretaps.
The wiretapped.
If we did that, we would spend the entire hour-long conversation.
That's true.
Just introducing him.
Maybe that'll be a special episode of the Serfs. We'll just actually try and do a full Donald Trump name in its entirity and see how many we can get in there.
Just scandals.
Just scandals, yeah, just scandals. If we added other stuff, it would take years to finish.
So yeah, like today was an interesting day in that it's Monday today. So generally, there's a lot of political news and just rabble dabble going on a Monday. But today, for the most part, it was a pretty quiet day. Like there was very little.
Quiet weekend, actually.
Yeah. But today, like the weekend's over. Donald Trump's finished his Mother's Day golf trip by himself. So, you'd expect some regular chaos to break out. But for the most part, it was all good up until like right at the end of the day where Washington Post broke a story about Donald Trump giving up some classified intelligence to the Russian foreign minister when he was there last week. So,
oh no!
Yeah, so like last week. So just a quick little like rewind there. This is how the facts unravel. So 2 weeks ago or so, Comey, the former FBI head, Comey asked for more resources or money for the Russia probe.
That's not going to fly.
Yep. Trump then cans Comey. Trump then the next day invites the Russians, the foreign minister, to the Oval Office, and then he proceeds to divulge state secrets.
Secrets that he hadn't even told our allies yet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I think the crux of this little intelligence was something to do with ISIS and bombs on laptops. I believe that's what it is. I'm not actually sure. But what you said, I think that's what the New York Times picked up on, that the intel that he divulged or blurted out, he definitely just farted it out. It's not like, I know he didn't even mean to do it. It's obviously him showboating and be like, oh, look at this intel I got. Look at this intel I got. And just fucking gave it right up.
No kidding. So, I mean, what does this mean? Is this treason? Is this treasonous? Is it...
What isn't treasonous this day?
Yeah, I know. How many treasons can this man pile into one cesspool, into one swamp, as some might say?
It's amazing because, obviously their whole campaign bashed crooked Hillary for her handling the emails and classified information. Like, here's some tweets.
Lock her up.
Here's some tweets from Mr. Donald Trump from a while back. Crooked Hillary and her team are extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. Not fit. Here's Paul Ryan. It's simple. Individuals who are extremely careless with classified info should be denied further access to it. Here's Reince Priebus. Those who mishandle classified info have had their security clearances revoked, lost their jobs, faced fines, and even been sent to prison.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I sometimes feel bad for Reince Priebus because he was born with the name Reince Priebus and had to endure, the hardships of that his entire life. And now he is just the whipping boy for the deplorables, basically.
You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of, in Lord of the Rings, Grima Wormtongue. Like, he's got the same job. He's pretty much got the same shitty voice.
Oh, that's really good. Oh, yes. All right, nerds, we're coming for you. we got the nerd demographic sealed. We got Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. What else you got? I guess the other big headline this weekend was the ransomware. Speaking of nerds hacking the world, basically.
Yeah, the nerds are back.
The nerds are back. I mean, sometimes when you hear about hacks and stuff, it's all exciting because it's like
it's like that movie Hackers.
Yeah, exactly like the movie Hackers. Exactly like the movie Hackers. Yeah, because every hacking female in the world looks like Angelina Jolie. That's what they look like. They're gorgeous, everyone. And the men, ooh la la. Yeah, so ransomware, basically random people somewhere in the world hack and lock your files, and you have to pay a Bitcoin address to get them unlocked. That's the crux of it, I take it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's derived from the NSA, right? This is from an old NSA hack that happened last year.
Oh, so this one's still perpetuating, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I remember last year they got hacked and they lost some viable or valuable tools, hacking tools. And that's basically what it was. To the point where, like, I think the most well-known use of it was in Britain over the last weekend, where their hospitals and health services were like totally fucked because of it.
Oh man, that's brutal. That's like just shame on you.
Yeah.
You're not like new age ninjas or anything.
Yeah, this
you're
isn't like
scum.
Anonymous doing like, we're doing it for the people. It's like, no, you guys are fucking with people's lives.
You're just scum trying to score some bitcoins and screwing up hospitals. Like, shame on you. That's horrible. I did hear the person who eventually I guess cracked the hack did so completely by accident. He just found a kill switch on it. And that's how like major resources. It's like the equivalent of when Homer Simpson prevented the 3 Mile Island just by pushing a button. Like he did that.
Y-E-S.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but like that hack's still unfolding. They were saying that there's going to be a lot more systems who are still vulnerable to it.
Still affected. Yeah.
And,
I mean, okay, so for this hack to work, you have to open an email attachment, which just instantly made me think, who does that from anonymous sources? Like, I don't think
so
I've
many
ever...
people. So many people.
Okay, well, never mind.
Like,
but old people, right? Like old people.
I don't even think old people. I think pretty much anybody over 45 is stupid enough to do it.
Which again, since we're cornering the millennial market, those are old people.
Yeah, right.
Those are
like
garbage
super
people.
Old.
No, we're young people, and we're done with the
hip,
youth.
we're young.
Yeah, we're fleek.
I'm gonna find that funny no matter how many times you say it.
I know. It's just such a ridiculous word, okay? Now I'm going to sound really old because I'm just going to be like, on fleek is one of the most ridiculous terms I've had to learn against my will, and I'm very, very upset about that.
That's how you know you're really getting old up there.
I know, right? Anyways, hackers, those are shitty hackers, all right? Don't hack us. We're unhackable, so don't even try it. But, yeah. What can I say? It's not like lulsec or other stuff that was, hilarious because they were just shutting down like McDonald's for a day and making McDonald's put swastikas on Twitter and stuff. And you're like, oh, that's so funny. Like,
that's not funny.
Yeah, exactly. We're all having a laugh. Even McDonald's laughed at that. And then they were like, oh, we made another $1 million because everyone felt bad that minute, like.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know about this one. I feel like it's just a tool that just goes out and infects anything that is open. So I don't think it's like, it's one of those tools that can be used maliciously towards a specific target so much as it's like open.
It's just
chaos.
ransom. Yeah. Hence, it's just not a fancy name. It's just ransom, right? It's just holding people for ransom and just want those bitcoins. Those sweet, sweet bitcoins.
Protect your neck, protect your nerd neck these days. So
yeah, it's true.
I'm pulling off all my nude pictures off online. I will be posting them to probably our official Instagram account or so. Got to keep up.
We got to hold those at a high price. Come on, we need to open a Patreon to get those pictures out.
I think Patreon will take one good look at our pictures and be like, oh God, no.
I'll start a Patreon not to have those released, just to lock those away with the Whoopi Goldberg nude photos.
So this new article or this new news piece that came out about this ransomware little scandal about them obviously holding things for ransom. So apparently part of the big hackers got into Disney's servers and got a hold of the new Pirates of the Caribbean 5, the search for ever-lending money, and are now threatening Disney that they're going to release it for free if they don't get a large sum of bitcoins.
Well, first off, you picked the worst movie in the Disney canon coming out this year. Come on. There's how many Star Wars movies do they have been made? How many Marvel movies do they have been made? And you hacked Pirates of the Caribbean. Can you imagine the idiot who saw the folders and dragged the Pirates of the Caribbean one over?
I got it, guys. I got it. Pirates 5.
I wouldn't be surprised if the execs are like, you keep it. Like,
Yeah, it's like if you held any of Trump's kids hostage for like money and Tiffany Trump, if you found Tiffany Trump and you're like, if you don't give me the money, I'm gonna blow her brains out. Trump would just be like, go ahead.
Yeah, there would be a lot of bangs before it got to Ivanka. Well, I think you had an idea for a new segment of the week, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's happening on the world and the media, the state of media these days is just unreliable and just, it's just chaos. And as we've heard, the president referred to them as fake news. I mean, there's just so much fake news out there.
Sad.
Yeah, I mean, to the president's credit, everything is fake news except for Fox News.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will take, I guess, a slightly more reasonable approach where everything except for us isn't fake news.
I like that.
But no, we're gonna every week we're gonna try to find a piece of fake news because it's bloody easy, and there's always seemingly a viral hit every week that is just made up hullabaloo.
Yeah, exactly.
And this week's hullabaloo comes to us all the way from Indonesia. I believe it was Indonesia. Where the body of Cthulhu washed up on shore and perplexed local fishermen, local inhabitants, and then I guess the news media picked up. Once local media and then international media, opining about what this dead carcass was, and it's this new thing, this new species. They didn't actually call it Cthulhu, but,
Well, I mean, it wasn't just them, news sites that claim to have some credibility, like, oh, I'm going to throw this at you, Vice News. Vice News did a story on it, and it was complete clickbait, where it was just like, people are losing their minds over what this strange beast could be, and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, even, I mean, we can make a lot of fun about Vice News, but I saw a little click shot of BBC News covering it as well. I didn't read it. I just saw the headline with the little picture there. But it was clear from looking at the picture, it was like right away, it's like, oh, that's a dead whale carcass.
Absolutely. That was the first thing I thought. I was like, this is definitely a dead mammal of some sort that we're aware of. It's not a space creature or like, anything else.
And sure enough, I think most marine biologists were like, after a little bit, they're like, yeah, that's decomposing humpback whale carcass. It's not.
And what happens is obviously the body expands with gases and becomes gross and bloated, and it looks like a strange, Atlantis beast. But it's not Steve Bannon. It's not Steve Bannon.
We would know if it was Steve Bannon because it would be on the
Steve Bannon washed up in Indonesia.
Yeah, and it would be like spouting fucking hate mail or hate and racist gibberish. You know a dead troll when you see it. He farts out like gases that are like, oh, the blacks are inferior people. That's what Steve Bannon's corpse would be saying.
So I guess that's our fake news of the week.
And
we're like Snopes now.
That's it. Leading out of that segment, talking about corpses and bloated racist windbags, that's a perfect segue into Fatty Richard Spencer's little antics this week, eh?
Oh, our favorite white nationalist.
Yes, our dapper white nationalist, who since we last saw him getting punched in the face, has grown a little chunky
not enough
these
times.
days.
Not too enough X gonna give it to you. There's not enough X gonna give it to you in the world for how great it was to watch that clip.
Oh, so good.
Endlessly. And, I don't want to sound like Donald Trump and condone violence and say, like, I want to see people get punched. But, I mean, it was just so satisfying to see because the smugness. It's the smugness on his face. Tell me, even if you're a Ted Cruz supporter, you wouldn't support seeing Ted Cruz get a little slapped just because of how smug he always looks. And it's just that weird little smug snarl, like, you don't want to see it. I just want to look at it. And so I'm not condoning violence. I'm not saying he should be hurt. But should he be hurt, I might be like, just because I didn't want to look at that anymore, basically. And that's how I feel about Richard Spencer.
Oh, yeah. So Richard Spencer and his gaggle of white nationalists all rallied over the weekend in New Orleans or Louisiana somewhere.
It was Louisiana, yeah.
To protest the removal of some Confederate statues of some racist shit, like treasonous leches. Let's call the Confederate generals as they were. Traitors.
No, absolutely.
Losing
you
traitors.
lost the war.
So these guys all showed up at night in a gaggle of, white faces of racist dickbaggery, holding torches to invoke, I guess, scenes of the KKK, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought when I saw a photo of it. I was like, oh, that's very Ku Klux Klan-y. All right, cool.
And at first, like the first thing I saw was like, I was like, well, yeah. My first thought was the same thing. It was, wow, that's very Klan-like. Then right away I was like, that's a lot of torches. And then like my mind was like, how do you make torches these days? I don't know how to make a torch. You see all those movies like Indiana Jones and stuff. They go down underground. They're just like, oh, there's a torch, and then they just light it and it stays lit.
It's always just there and it's already lit.
Yeah. So I was curious, and then like on a zoomed in versions of all these pictures, in which it ended up being a viral sort of joke about it, they're carrying tiki torches, like those little citronella tiki torches. Yeah, from like you find from Target or something.
Say that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, is he about to say tiki torches? That's so embarrassing. Oh, but that's amazing. That's incredible. Awesome.
And totally believable.
You clowns. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I would assume that I grab a stick and then I grab a shirt and then I wrap it and then I dip it in kerosene or something and light it and I've got a torch. But I have a also very strong assumption I'd light myself on fire in this process.
Oh, I would totally light myself up on fire.
Yeah,
I'd be like, it'd be a weird Indiana Jones where you find this old ruin, you're like, sweet, like we're so close, and then I end up just burning myself to death in some tunnel underground.
That would be well before the rock squishes you. You'd just be on fire.
Oh yeah, way before. You'd be that corpse that Indiana Jones steps over and it's like, oh, wonder what happened here.
Well, I mean, Richard is never going to be the Cretin of the week because, like him and like Mila Yiannopoulos and all these other people, I don't want to give them more platforms than they already have. I think all they do is crave attention, and they get more powerful the more attention we give them. And
they're just trolls.
Really defeating my point by talking about him right now.
Well, it's fun to laugh about him. But we do have a Cretin. The world is not short of Cretins to talk about.
It's so Cretinous these days.
So we do have a new Cretin of the week. And he is.
Well, I mean, because last week's episode was a lost episode, we should acknowledge we've changed the piece of shit of the week to the Cretin of the week.
Oh, yes. Right. And last week, actually, our Cretin of the week was the man that we are about to talk about right now. But he is not going to escape so easily by having a spoiled episode.
No matter how much he greases up his muscles and body, he'll never slip away from us.
Yeah, so our Cretin is probably the broiest person in the House of Congress. Broiest douchebag, the guy you would expect to see in some sort of like frat movie gone bad. Obviously, what we're talking about is Paul Ryan.
Yeah, bro. Paul Ryan, bro.
Yeah, the guy who wanks it to taking healthcare away from poor people.
Poor people, women, old people, basically everyone who's not straight, hetero, white, and well off. I'd say Paul Ryan probably doesn't want to have healthcare in some form.
Oh yeah, just the poorest, really, just the poorest.
Yeah, just the poorest, which says a lot from his original prophet. It's not the Prophet Muhammad. It happens to be Ayn Rand. He's a Randroid.
Yeah. He's a hyper libertarian.
I don't know. It just speaks volumes of everyone who's born with privilege and seems to think that self-actualization and Atlas Shrugged are good concepts or pieces of literature, when in fact it's really just objectifying the poor as being lazy and degenerates for not having what you were born with.
My favorite part of Ayn Rand is how she died on welfare, poor as fucking shit.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest hypocrites.
Yeah, what a hypocrite. Well, Paul Ryan, what was it? Back in when he was in university, was he a frat guy? I can't remember.
I don't know if he was in a frat, but he had a lot of very fratty comments.
Some stuff about how he couldn't wait to undo the socials net for people, how to bring down government, how to take healthcare away from poor, or end Medicaid, I think it was.
But this is all while doing cake stands. He's like, you might have done cake stands and you dreamt about, nailing girls and stuff. But when I was doing cake stands, I was dreaming about taking away Social Security and Medicaid. Who fantasizes about that kind of stuff? I mean, you're at a party, dude, all right? Stop being the worst. Yeah, exactly. You are the downer at this affair, good sir.
It's like, nice drink, bro. Thanks, bro. What do you think about ending the social safety net for the poor people? What do you think about single mothers, bro? Fuck them. Dude. Weak, man.
Yeah,
Weak.
that sounds like literally the worst person at a party ever.
Yeah. His like, I can only imagine the group of friends he had. They like the chachiest, douchiest kind of guys. Like, just look at Paul Ryan's face. That comment of him doing keg stands and talking about getting rid of like the Social Security. Like, I just had this vision in my head of just the worst, douchiest people in the world.
Oh yeah, no kidding. I mean, everything about Paul Ryan, he doesn't just stop at wanting the poor and women to not have healthcare. He also, he was against the LGBTQ discrimination in the military bill. He's passed bills delaying EPA regulations on pollution. He was one of the really vocal people saying we should stop the spread of Syrian refugees in the United States as if there's some kind of an infection. Well, meanwhile, the real infection that was rotting the GOP at the time, which happened to be Donald Trump, he had to try and, cut the limb / reattach the limb / cut the limb so many multiple times because at the end, he doesn't really have real convictions. He has kind of temporary convictions on where he should stand on any given point.
Yeah, he's just power hungry enough to push his own agenda through. He doesn't really care. He's not principled enough as a man to stand up to like Donald Trump's transgressions at all. He portrays himself to be like this moral Christian figure, follower of Jesus and all that. And I mean, from what we just said, speaking out against Syrian refugees, taking healthcare away from old people, the poor, is very anti-Christian. I find it very interesting that people can be, on one hand, hyper Ayn Rand and hyper Christ.
Well, Ayn Rand, as you know, was a famous atheist, so it's very unusual that anyone attached themselves to her in the conservative right, still thinking that, they were the voice of this kind of Christian movement. It's funny you should mention the whole Ayn Rand thing, because like as a practicing Catholic, he got a letter from a whole bunch of Catholic theologians and Jesuit priests that they actually said that he has to stop supporting Ayn Rand's philosophies. This was like a call to selfishness, and there was the antagonism towards religion. They're antithetical to the gospel values, all this kind of stuff.
So what was his response?
Well, he bowed down. He bent the knee. He bent the knee, kissed the ring, everything he was supposed to do. He was like, "Oh, I completely forego my loyalty to Ayn Rand, and I've switched from Rand to Thomas Aquinas." So he started like pushing the philosophies of Thomas Aquinas.
So basically, there's a common theme of Paul Ryan being a spineless little bitch.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But a spineless little bitch who seems to slip his way into better and better situations. I mean, do you remember when he was the vice presidential nominee and that failed so horrifically that everyone was like, we're probably seeing the end of Paul Ryan, the golden boy. Then he rose up again. Then he became the Speaker of the House. And then when the whole Trump thing was happening and he was bouncing back and forth with that, they were like, well, Paul Ryan's not going to survive this Trump era because, Trump's really testing him. But he was slippery enough again to kind of mold his way into the Trump administration, give his support, pull back his support, grab the pussy, don't grab the pussy, leave the pussy alone. Yeah.
Grab the pussy, don't grab the pussy.
yeah, exactly. Well, he couldn't make up his mind on that one. He didn't know what to do on that. So yeah, I got to give it to Paul Ryan for being such a horrible douchebag cretin. He still has managed to survive. He's a cockroach. He lives in the worst of conditions.
Yeah, and these are the worst of times, really. I mean, so basically what you're saying is when the nuclear bombs fucking fly eventually, which, tick tock, Paul Ryan will survive us all.
He will survive.
Him and Keith Richards. Well, it's fucking
nothing's taking Keith Richards down. Oh my God. Heroin couldn't do it. Trump can't do it. Paul Ryan can't do it. All right, and now we're on to the main topic. And this week we are talking about Watergate.
The scandal's so big, it pretty much ruined any creativity when it comes to naming scandals from here on till forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nomenclature given to any scandal. It's just gate.
It's so lame. I mean, I get it at first, but come on, every fucking scandal.
I know it's just the name of a hotel complex.
Yeah,
and then we just add we affix the gate to
suffix
everything else.
Gate. Yeah, I mean, it's so lazy.
Yeah, it really sucks. But I mean, more so than tainting scandalous terms forever, it really tainted the office of the presidency forever.
Well, not
I
forever, because Donald Trump ruined it forever.
Yeah. Well, Donald Trump blew it into this weird, I don't know, Timbuktu cartoon Looney Tunes land where nothing matters. So he pulled that off. Whatever genius you want to affix to that accomplishment. Fucking nonsense. Yeah, but I'd say Watergate was pretty much the beginning of the American people forever distrusting politics and politicians being associated with criminals, scammers, tricksters, liars, all that kind of stuff. That was all kind of post Watergate. You know, I mean, there was shitty politicians before then. There was corrupt politicians before then. There were scandals before then. But ever since then, all politicians are kind of smeared with this veneer of being disingenuous and untrustable.
Yeah, being like fake and corrupted and I mean, like, especially with the way the Watergate scandal unfolded, it took years and obviously a lot of bold-faced lies to the public that eventually became uncovered.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
no, absolutely.
And it also, like, obviously Nixon came after the whole Kennedy, you know, in the line of in presidency, and Kennedy sort of inspired this, I guess, Obama-style hope, this new wave kind of style.
And he was so pretty. He was so easy on the eyes, you know?
Yeah, I think that goes a long way. Whereas nobody would really call Richard Nixon easy on the eyes.
No, he suffered a lot in those initial debates against Kennedy where he's just in there like meanwhile, beautiful Kennedy's just, you know, sparkling in the distance. And yeah. So yeah, I mean, Watergate, in a nutshell, for those of you who don't know, is basically when 5 men broke into the DNC headquarters, which was located in the Watergate Hotel. They got arrested by the DC police. And that would have been the end of it. Except it turns out that these 5 men were working for the committee to re-elect the president, also otherwise known as CREEP. They were known as the plumbers because they were supposed to fix any problem. Did you get it? Did you get it? I mean, no.
They were also, it was headed by an old FBI and an old CIA frontman.
Yeah. Well, we'll get it. I mean, we'll get into them. We'll get into those dirty tricksters. But yeah, that's it. And as the scandal went further and further, it turned out that eventually it had gone all the way to the president. Like, Richard Nixon actually didn't orchestrate it, but he found out about it. And when he was told about it, he didn't say, all right, I'm having you all arrested or I'm going to investigate this further. He agreed to bribing the people who were put in jail. And that's when he got incriminated in the whole affair as well. Not that Nixon had any reason to want to bring these people to justice, because what they were doing was essentially what he wanted the plumbers to do.
Nixon had this very strong streak of paranoia that everybody was out to get him.
Yes, absolutely.
He had his own enemies list that he used to anybody who was he perceived as an enemy. Any way he could possibly slight them. I was saying, those tendencies, which are also very apparent in Donald Trump as well: paranoia, enemies, maliciousness, disregard for the law.
Yeah. Nixon used to call the news the line news.
Yes.
Where we've heard that kind of term before.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I believe Hitler used to call it the Lügenpresse, or which means the fake news, the line news. You know what? We should call that segment the Lügenpresse of the week.
Yes, definitely. Because who doesn't like invoking Hitler?
Who doesn't love invoking Hitler in every way? It's the lazy man's dictator. Come on, you want to win an argument, don't you? Okay, well, let's start with motivations. Why would anyone in their right mind orchestrate, do this as Nixon, or even agree to be a part of it as Nixon did, when Nixon was on the way to a landslide victory against George McGovern in the 1968 election?
I mean, to rewind here, America in the 70s was sort of having a rough go at it. Economy was doing bad. Vietnam was doing bad. And a bunch of other malaise out there. But when Nixon was campaigning Nixon, I guess, was president that first term, and then this was his second term.
This was still the second term. He was starting to hit some home runs, victories. It looked like the Vietnam War was sort of winding down. There was a little détente happening. He founded the EPA. He opened up stuff with China. So generally, in the news, the country was finally starting to recover from the civil rights movement, or the fracture between the civil rights thing, the assassinations of the 60s. And for a while there, things started being on an upward trajectory.
And yeah, like you said, because of that, he was on George McGovern had no chance of winning that election. Nobody gave him a chance.
No.
Like
I mean, Donald Trump loves to brag about his, greatest election victory, greatest, electoral college victory of all time. Nixon beat George McGovern. I think George McGovern took one state, and the District of Columbia. So he took 2. That was it.
It was a massacre.
It was worse. Come on, Trump. You want to talk to us about historical victories? Nixon destroyed McGovern. Look at the red electoral college on that map. You can't even see the blue. Like, it's a Where's Waldo of where McGovern got votes. All right, it's absolutely atrocious. But that brings again the question of the motive. Why would a president then, who has a really high chance of beating his incumbent, want to sabotage the next election? So what exactly was going wrong? So when you mentioned Vietnam, I agree. Vietnam, like, a lot of people like to think that Vietnam, for some reason, is Nixon's war. It wasn't his war. He inherited that war.
Yeah. I mean, it was a war that was boiling over for multiple presidents.
So long. Yeah. The Cold War, people forget how long the Cold War actually was, but it was through multiple presidencies. The grossest thing about Nixon, and both Nixon and I want to mention, Henry Kissinger, his, right-hand man, and who didn't, a man who never met an Asian baby he didn't want to drink the blood of. Right before 1968, Vietnam, the Vietnam War was actually on the verge of being over, thanks to the Paris Peace Accords. They were actually about to end the Vietnam War, and Henry Kissinger convinced Nixon, who then convinced the South Vietnamese to hold off, because they didn't want to do that right before the election. They wanted to be able to use that as an election tool. That is just so venomous. It's so crazy evil. And then on top of that, they started the illegal bombing campaigns of Laos and Cambodia, which again is, the evil. Depths of human depravity. It's just fundamentally evil. These are some of the worst war crimes in American history. That's one of the worst war crimes.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, those ramifications are still being felt today. So I mean, it's disgusting, really, frankly.
Yeah. It's like, I can't even make that. Like, we tried to make Syrian babies being sarin gassed into comedy. It's just not possible. No. We failed at that. So I'm not going to try here with Cambodian children getting firebombed and carpet bombed and all that kind of stuff. It's just deplorable, and it's why Henry Kissinger should be tried for war crimes. But that being said, after all that bombing, that gave way to the Khmer Rouge. That's where the Khmer Rouge rose up from power from. So, I mean, for anyone who likes using Hitler as the lazy man's dictator, look to the Khmer Rouge. Google or Wikipedia the Khmer Rouge, and you will find far equal or even worse, or I don't even know. I don't want to pit dictator against dictator.
It's tough to rank atrocities by dictators.
Human atrocity. I mean, by numbers, Hitler wins, but by sheer cruelty, Pol Pot might be up there. I don't know.
Yeah. Either way, that's
not the point of this podcast. That's not why you tuned in.
We're getting derailed by our autocratic rankings here.
But anyway, so all this being done, there's a corporation called the Rand Corporation, a non-profit organization that assessed all this and basically published the Pentagon Papers. And the Pentagon Papers revealed Nixon's I wouldn't say complicity in ending the Paris Peace Accords, but just how shitty his administration had been doing in terms of Vietnam. And these would have been only known within the administration. However, the Pentagon Papers got leaked. And because they got leaked and published, Nixon's paranoia skyrocketed. And we're talking about a man who's always drunk. He's always wandering around drunk, is incredibly anti-Semitic, hates the Jews, thinks there's a Jewish conspiracy. He's in the height of the Cold War, so he thinks there's a communist conspiracy. There's just so many conspiracies. So this is a man with insane paranoia and alcohol running through his veins who obviously creates this team of the plumbers in order to try and stop leaks, plug leaks, create dirty tricks of his own, and work in general, dirty politics in order to help his reelection.
Which is like completely like we mentioned earlier, completely unnecessary because he had it in the bag. It's like
in the bag.
If it's like if you were boxing against a 10-year-old and you were still cheating and getting somebody to spike his water bottles while in the middle of it.
Put ketamine in the 10-year-old boxer's drink before you box the 10-year-old. Just want to make sure we get this one in. It's absolutely ludicrous. but that's why they did it.
Yeah.
Long, boring. Actually, no, it's not boring. Watergate is fascinating. Long story short, though, this only really blew up because the local DC police caught those 5 men, and from then they got charged with burglary, conspiracy, all this stuff.
Yeah, and then you had the Washington Post sort of unravel the mystery with the help of Deep Throat.
Yes, Deep Throat. Can't forget about that. The source of all sources.
Deep Throat turned out to be the deputy director of the FBI at the time.
That was revealed really recently, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think in 2006 or so.
That's crazy. So that was in our lifetime. See, I would have been too piece of shitty around then to even appreciate how incredible that revelation was.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
Yeah.
What's actually interesting to go back to sync up this current administration with that stuff. Woodward and Bernstein are considered to have uncovered this, the investigative journalism that occurred to unravel the Watergate scandal is considered one of the finest points in American journalistic history, right?
I totally agree.
They're held in such high regard, both of them. But who is stumping for Donald Trump these days? Is Bob Woodward.
Really?
Yeah, he's a pretty big Trump guy. He was on the campaign trail pretty much rubbing Trump's balls in the media and stuff. Not even this last week, he came out after, I guess, the Comey stuff and all these scandals, and he's like, "Oh, Trump's done nothing wrong." And I was like, dude, what? You of all people. What? So, I guess the scandals continued up until a point where it became revealed that Nixon was recording conversations within the Oval Office.
Well, he had been doing that throughout a lot of his presidency. That's just part of his insane paranoia, and
yes,
which is the reason we have also, the Nixon tapes.
Yeah. So he was recording stuff, and it was at this time he was being accused of being complicit or involved in the break-in at the Watergate. Mm-hmm. And if he had done that, it would have been on these tapes. So basically, Congress and Senate or investigators and the media were basically saying, hand us over these tapes. If you're innocent, hand us over these fucking tapes, you creep.
Well, I was going to say, it wasn't just a small amount of people. The thing with Watergate is it was coming at him from so many different angles. I think the FBI started an investigation against him, but they got shut down because he got the CIA to tell him to stop, which I don't know if this is ringing any bells with modern history, but we'll stop there. The grand jury was also investigating him. The Senate under Sam Irving was investigating him as well as the Washington Post or DU Post. But then Nixon, to try and wash his hands of all this, appointed a special prosecutor. Because that's where that famous speech comes, where he's like, the American people want them to know that whether or not the president is a crook, and I am not a crook.
I'm not a crook.
So, that's where I am not a crook. Yeah, that's where it comes from. Where he announced that he had a special prosecutor, Archibald Cox, who was also going to, take this down. So that's 5 or 6 different people investigating it. And I guess that brings us back to modern times when people keep trying to make this comparison with the Trump scandal and the Russian collusion and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't make sense at first to me to hear that in headlines, because I'm like, well, they're very, very, very different cases. You are doing apples and oranges right now. The similarities are very striking in that this could impeach a president, right? That's where we start from. But in Trump's case, we're starting to see the pile up of different people investigating it starting now as well, right? We've got different people coming from different angles. Like you said, Washington Post, it seems to be the enemy of the Republican corrupt, because they once again released that story today about the Russian collusion, Trump releasing sensitive information to the Russians. Also doing the exact same thing with Nixon.
Okay, so where we are is basically, so Nixon is recording all his confessions, let's say, in the Oval Office. And
just recording conversations. Confessions happen to be inside them.
Yes. And the Democrats, the media, everybody's out for these these tapes. The existence
The
of them
Nixon
had
tapes.
basically been leaked, and Nixon basically tried to use executive privilege to get away with it, saying, this is my right as the president. The president can't do any wrong, blah, blah, blah. Supreme Court, however, said, fuck that noise. If you're complicit in a possible crime, those tapes have to be turned over and you have to confess or you have to give them up. So those tapes were eventually released. On those tapes was a whole bunch of Richard Nixon talking about how he was going to go in people's rooms at night and mess up the place.
And mess up the place. And sell your kids' organs to zoos.
So essentially there was plenty of ample evidence that he was in fact complicit in the whole break-in and all that stuff. So now the public and everybody else is aware of him being a ratbag piece of shit.
Yeah.
And now what would basically he was now open to grounds of impeachment. He had broken enough laws, and the 25th Amendment states that, get the fuck out of business if it's time to get the fuck out of business.
That's constitutional school for you, folks. The Fifth Amendment says fuck off.
The First Amendment says you have the right to fuck on. The
Yeah,
25th
you have the right
Amendment
to
says
fuck on. First Amendment, fuck on. Fifth Amendment, fuck off. There it is. Write that in your exams. Pass the bar. Become a lawyer. Change the country.
Oh, that's good. Obviously with impeachment, you need 2/3 of the Senate needs to ratify impeachment, which obviously neither party ever has 2/3 of the Senate. Best, it's usually a slight majority or so.
The silent majority. That sounds familiar. How did Nixon get elected? Did he reach out to the silent majority by saying that the blacks in the Southern Belt were going to rape their women and change the world? Yeah, I think so.
Well, he wouldn't say that. That would be something horribly racist, and Richard Nixon couldn't be racist, right? I mean,
no, absolutely not.
He's
absolutely
above
not.
that.
Yeah.
So basically, Congress and the Senate have to begin impeachment proceedings, and it's debatable how far that would have gotten. I think in that political climate, he probably would have been impeached because things weren't as partisan shittery as they are now. But rather than go through all that stuff, Richard Nixon decided to famously board that little helicopter. Oh, actually, what? A little rewind there. Before that, Richard Nixon's vice president and a bunch of these other fucks, his senior aides, the head of so many little things, about 7 top aides, ministers, and whatever else, resigned as a scandal was unfolding. So his VP was resigned. So
but it should be mentioned that Spiro Agnew is historically considered the worst vice president in history, and he resigned for an entirely separate scandal of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes. So the only reason more people don't know about Spiro Agnew and all the shitty stuff he did was because he was dwarfed by Nixon. By Nixon's scandal. But Spiro Agnew was a complete degenerate and human piece of shit. I got the biggest pass of any politician in history thanks to Nixon.
He's so lucky, right? I mean, you're so fortunate in historical terms to basically be your footnote because you were just in the shadow.
And most people don't know who he
scandal.
is now. It's like, who the hell is Spiro Agnew? Yeah.
So anyways, Agnew stepped down and Richard Nixon appointed Gerald Ford as his vice president.
You like nachos, Homer? You like football?
Do I?
Got some nachos and some football.
So Nixon, rather than obviously with the mounting pressure about impeachment and the scandal just sort of snowballing fucking out of control. So he decided to board his little helicopter and abdicate. Or can he abdicate? I guess. Can you abdicate a presidency, or is that only for royal thrones?
It's only for the monarchy. He resigned. He resigned the office of the presidency.
Yeah, he resigned. He boarded that thing, did his little
first president to ever resign in history.
Yeah, Ford pardoned him because that's pretty much Yeah. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the gig, right? I mean, I would.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll give you the
assume absolute
presidency.
power.
Yeah, I'll
You're
give you the
forgiven.
presidency if you forgive me. Yeah, it's a deal.
Now bend the knee.
You know what? I mean, I'm all for democracy. Democracy obviously kicks ass. But one of the things we've lost in a democracy is bend the knee and kiss
Bending
the
the
ring.
knee.
Yeah, I think even in a democracy that should be brought back. I don't know
That's
what
absolutely
form,
true.
but let's try to bring it back.
Well, I mean, I'm sure behind closed doors, Trump has made Mike Pence bend the knee many a
Oh,
time.
fuck yeah.
So many
yeah.
times. Imagine how many times Chris Christie has had to bend the knee.
Oh,
at Trump's
perpetually
behest.
on his knee.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the biggest reasons that he did that, besides the fact that, all the dogs were finally coming to the front gates, was the criminal charges, right?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just, I mean, Clinton's impeachment wasn't going to wind him up in jail. You weren't going to be in
It
jail.
was
for the
basically
Hummer.
just like unfit for office kind of impeachment.
You're unfit for office, which is ridiculous. I mean, blow who you want to blow in the background. It's not my business. But Nixon was facing serious criminal charges. And that was coming to a head. And there was enough time left in his presidency where, he definitely probably could have gone to jail. So he didn't want to be the first president who was officially impeached. Instead, he became the first president to resign the presidency.
And he would have gotten like eaten alive in jail.
Oh, absolutely, no question, and not just because the stereotype of the pretty men get eaten alive in jail. He was not pretty by any means. I mean, JFK proved that, but just because at that point, it's the president. It's the president who hated black people. It's the president who hated Jews. It's the most anti-Semitic president in history, and he's behind bars. Like,
there's no way he's the most anti-Semitic.
Yeah, that's a blanket statement I take back.
I would assume that almost every president before Nixon was just as, or if not more, fucking.
Oh, then you're gonna love the quote section of this episode to finish, Dave. We have some great Nixon quotes coming up. So I think we should finish with how exactly are the parallels to the Trump administration, because that's kind of what's in the news right now. One of the craziest things that people don't know is a figure named Roger Stone. Roger Stone was one of the dirty tricksters in the Nixon campaign. Roger Stone is basically a political spokesperson, a political mastermind who's behind the scenes in a lot of things.
A cartoon character. He's like
yes, if ever there was a living cartoon character, it's Roger Stone. The man has Nixon's face gigantically tattooed on his back. It's not quite a tramp stamp. Yeah, it's right underneath his neck. I'm not making this up. You can just Google it right after this episode.
Oh,
he has
I'm totally
Nixon's
Googling
face
it right now.
tattooed on his back, like a giant version of it. The man also owns the largest Nixon collectible memorabilia, like historical museum quality in the world. In history, he owns more Nixon memorabilia than anyone else.
Holy fuck! He totally has a Richard Nixon tattoo.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got his face on his back. And anyone who has sex with Roger Stone from the back will see Richard Nixon's face the whole time, staring back at them.
And he's Donald Trump's like one of his biggest mentors, is he not?
Yeah, I mean, mentors are kind of a strange term. So when Donald Trump was first rising to power, Roger Stone was basically an architect of a lot of the Trump administration and the Trump campaign. Roger Ailes, Roger Ailes was really good friends with Stone. They've been partners for a while. He was actually the one who recommended Roger Ailes join the Trump campaign. And then at a certain point in Trump's campaign, Trump officially disavowed him. I'm not talking about Roger Ailes. I'm talking about Stone. He separated himself from Stone and said Stone is no longer working on the campaign. And Stone had a different story in the media. He said that he had left the campaign, so no one really knows what happened there. But at the same time, Roger Stone never stopped pushing the narrative for Trump. And the more and more you read about Roger Stone, the more and more you learn that he actually is one of the key architects.
What a fucked up world, and like what a fucked up 8 years have gone by. Remember 8 years ago when then candidate Obama was associated with that Reverend Wright, and then he had to disavow any connection with Wright because Wright had some fiery sermons about, kill white people. Not literally, but that's basically what Fox News was saying. I can't remember what it was about, but it was like a little militant black power kind of stuff. And not even militant.
It wasn't great by any means.
It was like in a church militant style. So it's pretty tame. And here we are, where where Roger Stone is associated with the president, it's so far past what would have normally been acceptable. Like,
No, it's true.
it's just fucking mind-boggling.
I mean, I think one of the big reasons, I mean, Roger Stone used to be beloved by the GOP. He was also one of the architects who kind of destroyed the Reform Party because he saw that's the reason why Bill Clinton got elected, and he didn't want any part of that. He wanted to destroy the Reform Party, which was smart because the right was being fractured into a two-party system. Which may have eventually been fractured into a three-party system, but he reined that back, which is one of the big reasons that George Bush II got elected. This is all still Roger Stone, but Roger Stone also is a bit of a sexual, let's just say, a loose man. He loves swinging, he loves cuckolding, he loves pegging, he loves all this crazy stuff.
He's super creep. Look him up online, like look at his Twitter feed and stuff. It's just disgusting, and he's a disgusting. Gross man.
But I mean, if you want to be a disgusting gross man in the privacy of your own home, that's your business. Go nuts. Wash yourself in, hat, chicken skin, and whatever else that gets you off. But the Republican Party wasn't down with that. So they didn't want someone being a master architect behind the scenes who also loved all this crazy sexual stuff. So that's the reason they started distancing themselves.
What I
so
find
much
interesting
from Roger
about the whole Nixon scandal, while being compared to this unfolding scandal, is that he, a day or two after the Comey firing, basically said, "Don't make me release the tapes," which are an allusion to that he is recording, similar to Nixon, recording all his conversations in the Oval Office, which, let's be honest, that's totally believable.
Oh, absolutely. So,
right?
Well, I was going to say, no one more than Trump is painting this as being like Watergate.
Yeah. Why are you doing this?
Why are you inventing, illusions that no one else is making? Why are you connecting dots that no one else is doing? You're doing all the crazy tinfoil hat stuff.
You're doing all the legwork. Like, he's putting Alex Jones out of work, right? Because Alex Jones is like, fuck, I can't even connect the dots. The president's collecting the dots.
Well, what did he say? Like, I hope there are no recorded tapes, in quotation marks, of our conversations or something like that. I mean, yeah. I don't know if this is him trying to appease the media and try to make them sound more like fake news.
He's too stupid for that.
Yeah, he is too stupid for that. I'm so sick and tired of people saying that, like, oh, maybe this is all part of Trump's master plan. You don't know how many chess moves ahead he is. Like,
so with this unfolding scandal from today about him potentially leaking state secret classified intelligence to the Russian foreign minister, essentially giving up classified material directly to a foreign national. If he did that in the Oval Office, and if he is recording information in the Oval Office, then theoretically there should be a recorded version of that.
The Trump tapes.
Trump tapes.
I
mean, considering the both the personality traits of both Trump and Nixon, considering Roger Stone is connected to both, I don't think it's a far cry to say Donald Trump is recording everything. And he also has a history of like recording eavesdropping in on guests at his fucking hotel suites when he was there.
He does. He also has a history of calling in as his own like press secretary,
press agent. Yeah,
as his own press agent. Yeah, interesting. So I guess hashtag Trump tapes. Let's get these things out. Let's listen to these things. That sounds great.
I mean, half of it's probably him like masturbatory talking about Ivanka Trump.
Oh yeah. So, well, no, not Ivanka Trump. The Electoral College vote. Come on.
Oh, that's true. Ivanka's now second. Ivanka's second on his list. That's why he framed that picture of the Electoral College in his hallway.
Well, those mosaic collages when they make someone's face out of a whole bunch of other images. He could make her face on the Electoral College, and then he could and then jerk off to that.
Oh, that's almost definitely happening right now.
So yeah, that's Watergate in a nutshell, everyone. So if you wonder what it was about, you've learned what it's about. It's way more entertaining than I'm sure the two of us made it sound. It's something well worth your time. It's.
I mean, I'm sure that most people have a pretty. I mean, other than millennials, because we know like everybody older than millennials will have grown up with Watergate.
They
to a
lived through
certain
it, yeah.
degree.
Like it's like Louis C.K. said. He's like, you think you know about like Nixon because you saw him on The Simpsons or something, but I watched him cry like a crazy person, resign the presidency, and get on a helicopter and fly away. You know,
Yeah.
Like, I saw that.
I mean, we can only hope that happens to Donald Trump.
Yeah, no kidding. I have no idea how that. He's not going down the way that any other human being would go down. He's far too narcissistic.
'Cause he,
yeah.
even Richard Nixon had some modicum of like being a human.
Yeah.
And
this is the guy with the madman theory, the whole idea that if I'm crazy enough, people will think I'm capable of anything, right? Like
yeah. Donald Trump is not going to be like, well, fuck, everybody's out to get me. I might go to jail.
Yeah.
I should step down. No, he's going to double down on his stupid.
He'll sue the United States government. He'll sue the Senate. He'll sue the Supreme Court.
It's like, sir, you are the president.
Yeah.
You cannot sue the government.
Yeah.
I'll grab everybody by the pussy.
All right. Well, should we close on some appropriate Richard Nixon quotes? Because I have
absolutely.
a mouthful. Okay, so these are actual quotes from Richard Nixon. These are verbatim. The reason we have them verbatim is they're from the Nixon tapes. So these are all the wonderful things that Nixon said and recorded himself and subsequently got released. I still think we ought to take the North Vietnamese dikes out now. Will that drown people? No. I'd rather use the nuclear bomb. Have you got that? Henry, the nuclear bomb? Does that bother you? I just want you to think big. Henry, for Christ's sakes. The only place where you and I disagree is regarding the bombing. You're so damn concerned about the civilians. I don't give a drat. I don't care.
Wow.
So that's Nixon on using the nuclear bomb in the Vietnam War, which, yeah, thankfully
To target civilians.
to target everybody, really. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I guess nuclear bombs aren't really discriminated.
I call it the madman theory. Bob, this is in reference to Bob Hadelman. I want the North Vietnamese to believe I've reached the point where I might do anything to stop the war. We'll just slip the word to them that, for God's sake, Nixon is obsessed about communism. We can't restrain him when he's angry, and he has his hand on the nuclear button. And Ho Chi Minh himself will be in Paris 2 days begging for peace. Yeah.
Well, it's partly true, I guess.
That's also true. The following quotes are entirely related to Jewish people.
Oh.
Fucking Jew bastards everywhere. That's the quote. Here's another quote. The Jewish cabal is out to get me. Here's another quote about the Jews. It's a funny thing. Every one of the bastards out for legalizing marijuana is Jewish. What the Christ is the matter with the Jews, Bob? What is with the matter with them? I suppose it's because most of them are psychiatrists.
Psychiatrist, that's a new one.
That's a new one, right? Well, Freud, right?
Yeah.
Freud was Jewish, wasn't he?
I don't know.
Well, yeah. I assume that's where the psychiatrist thing comes from. As long as I'm sitting in the chair, there's never going to be any Jew appointed to that court.
I'm talking about Supreme Court, I'm guessing.
Yes, he was definitely talking about the Supreme Court.
And sadly, I don't believe there's still a Jewish Supreme Court member.
And finally, goddamn the Jewish soul.
Wow.
Oh, but we're not done. The following are quotes related to black people. There are times when abortion is necessary. I know that. When you have a black and a white or a rape.
Wow.
Yeah. The president. Wow. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we're doing a disservice to the world right now by kind of normalizing Donald Trump by saying these quotes.
That's it's hilarious that he says that because like the modern GOP is like dead set against any type of abortion. A lot of them.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Even in case of rape and stuff. Yeah. But here's the former president of the United States saying, if you get raped, abortion's fine.
Yeah.
Or if you have
or if it's an interracial child.
baby.
Most importantly, if it's interracial. That warrants an abortion.
Of course.
Yeah. Sorry. Back to more black quotes. I have the greatest affection for them, the Negroes, but I know they're not going to make it 500 years. They aren't. You know it too. The Mexicans are quite a different cup of tea. They have heritage. At the present time, they steal. They're dishonest. But they do have some concept of family life. They're not like a bunch of dogs, which the Negroes do live like.
Jesus.
I know. Yeah. I mean, you think I'm quoting David Duke or something, but no, this was Richard Nixon.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I don't even think I have pretty much the lowest opinion of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But you know, even then, like I don't think he'd ever be malicious enough to say that kind of like hateful racist language about somebody.
Yeah, and that comes from a deep-seated hate. Like that's you caught being he's completely genuine. Like he's just having natural conversations with people, and this is just his rhetoric when he talks that way.
There's no point. It's just him. Yeah, natural. Like Jesus.
Yeah. You know what? I'll end there because I should end just by people acknowledging how horrible Richard Nixon actually was. He was a
way to end on a happy note.
Okay, fine. Fuck it. Here's some quotes about the gays from Richard Nixon. The Bohemian Grove, which I attend from time to time, is the most faggy goddamn thing you could ever imagine. Another quote by Richard Nixon on the gays. I don't mind the homosexuality. I understand it. Nevertheless, goddamn, I don't think you glorify it on public television. Homosexuality, even more than you glorify whores. We all know we have weaknesses.
Well, that one's sort of interesting. It's sort of opens an eye there.
And finally, sure, Aristotle was a homo. We all know that. So was Socrates.
Wait. Say that again. I missed that one.
Oh, sure, Aristotle was a homo. We all know that. So was Socrates. There, Dave, you happy? Is that a happy enough note for you?
That's great. Honestly, that I feel like anytime somebody brings up Plato or Aristotle or Socrates, you can just throw that back in their face.
Oh, we all know he was a homo. Oh, so was Socrates.
to quote the president, what is it, like the 38th president of the United States, 40th president of the United States? They were a homo.
Richard Nixon. Man. There you go. So we live in crazy times, but we've also lived in crazy times. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like when you hear that kind of stuff, especially how close Nixon was to using the bomb. You know, and Truman was super close to using the bomb against Korea. Yeah. Obviously, you know, like we discussed, Nixon was super close to dropping the bomb in Vietnam. You know, the world's been pretty fucked up before. So.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
This Cheeto fucking monster that is now president
with alien hair.
You know, it's probably the worst that we've had, but
in our time, in you and me's time.
Well, I would say I would imagine he's the worst president that's ever. You know, even Nixon. Oh, I don't know how to end this statement, but even Nixon wasn't.
Let's just say that he's the worst president that the millennials will know about because this is for the millennial audience and we're appealing to you guys.
Right.
And this episode was on fleek. Yeah.
Watergate was fleek.
Yeah. Nixon wasn't on fleek. Neither is Trump. They're not fleeking, but we're fleeking to you, the millennials.
You know, technically we're millennials, right?
Yeah, so. I know. Whatever. I'm the Nintendo generation, son. That's what I'm going to go with till my grave.
That's not a real thing.
It's not a real thing. No, it's not. Here we go. All right. Well, again, if you guys want to comment, you guys want to recommend a Cretin of the Week, you want to recommend anything, or just give us hate mail, do so in the comments at theserfs.podbean.com.
We appreciate any kind of feedback, anything. We're pretty much desperate for feedback.
Please.
Love us.
Please write to us. Anyways, we are the Serfs. I'm Lance.
I'm Dave. And vaya con el diablo.